I'm alive, I do or die. I'm alive, do or die. I'm alive.
Good evening, you lovely people. It's Monday night. It's 10 o'clock. It's the Sean Atwood channel, and we are here for our first episode of our cryptid series with the wonderful Beverly Rhodes and Matt Emch, who is got one of the most incredible stories that we're going to dive into.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, mate. And just before we get into our guest, Beverly, how are you? How have you been? And how are you this evening?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Ron. It's been a very nice time. The weather's been fabulous, nice and warm, and sent pictures out to make everyone very jealous.
Yeah, I received your pictures of your blue sky and your beachfront, and I looked out the side to see frosty grass. That's why I see gray sky and frosty grass, Matt, is what I see when I looked out my window this morning. Whereas the lovely Beverly is jet setting this evening. And
all the way in Spain.
Yeah, well, listen. It's still freaking damn sight better than the frosty grass and gray, you know. So, Matt, thank you for being here first of all and joining us.
Absolutely.
You've got quite a lore that follows you across the internet. I mean, your story happened to you. I mean, you were in your teens, right, when this happened, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it was 1987. I was 14 years old, getting ready to go right into high school. So it was the summer right before my first year of high school.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when they think of cryptids, right, these legendary creatures, legendary beasts, there's a few that instantly spring to mind. And I almost feel like Bigfoot is the one that springs to mind for people, first of all, right? And I almost feel like because he's not got sharp teeth or scary eyes or anything like this, he's seen as quite sometimes he's got a bit of a temporary character, but it's almost like we romanticize with it because there's that element of safety and understanding. You know, it's like big hairy monkey, you know what I mean? And we have that precognition towards it, but your story is very different. And do you want to just give the sort of summary before we dive into the full tale? Because I've read highlights. I've tried to keep myself as far from delving into other podcasts and things like this. I really just wanted to keep my mind. I wanted to sort of go on this journey this evening with you, Matt. So
absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'll give you guys the abridged version. Again, my name is Matt Emch. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is it's an hour from Cleveland, Ohio, and an hour from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So you're smack dab right in the middle. In 1987, I had this experience down in the old steel mills in Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown used to be one of the bigger steel making towns back in the heyday, when steel was huge across the world. There's smaller ones now these days. They've replaced the steel mill that we used to hang around in with a up-to-date one. Yeah, that right there, picture right there, right where it's pointing, that's the Jeannette blast furnace, and that's the area that we had the experience. That cream-colored building on the other side of it you'd be able to, if we could see it, you'd see a broken down fire escape and a flattened roof on the other side, which we can get into. But the train actually, as you see, went right by the building. That has meaning in the experience as well. So I'm sure a number of people are going to say, what are kids going down to an old steel mill and
Dude,
having?
Dude, I'm the opposite. I was just going to say to you, how alluring to teenage boys is this place? Like,
For sure.
This is like, I mean, there is all kinds of generational rites of passage as a young teen that would take place in a place like this.
For sure.
Just say it right now. So I get it. I mean, I absolutely get why you'd be drawn to this place for sure.
Yeah, one of one of my buddies. So there were four of us that day, that night it happened. Two of my friends who were there are no longer with us. God bless their souls. Another one of my buddies still here. So one of my friends who's not here anymore, he literally lived across the street from where you would go in to get down to that area. And it would take us roughly a half an hour from my buddy's house to get down to the Jeanette blast furnace, which you're seeing on the screen. And we would go down there and we would, there's other areas. We'd go fishing down there in the Mahoning River. We'd go all over this area. And that building right there, we kind of made our, quote unquote home base. And what we do, we go down there and just try and, find different things to do. And what we did down there is there was on the first floor, there was open walls on the first floor. So if you were down there, you could see right into the building. So if a train came by, they would see us in there. So what we did is since then I found out what these things were. They had hundreds of these things. They're called smelting shields, and they basically look like a old gladiator shield, the ones that kind of curved back towards the guys fighting. Okay. And they were shaped that way. And what we did is we made makeshift walls down on the first floor, so that people couldn't see us. And we were able to make 2 rows, and we'd have big, huge bonfires right in the center of the building. There were 4 floors. It was all concrete and steel, so nothing caught fire. Yeah. And, this one night that we had this experience, we were down there and we were kind of just, hanging out. And I remember that we weren't talking at one point. And I'm sure if you've gotten into cryptid, experiences, people hear, when something's about to go down, a lot of times everything will get really strangely quiet. And it got that way. And we were kind of just mesmerized by the fire and kind of not talking at all. And what we would have to watch out for down there was wild dogs and some people. But what the story has to be revolving around these wild dogs, packs of them are very dangerous. They would, run around that huge area down there, and they would attack human beings if you were seen by them. So we liked this building down there because there were no stairs. They had like fallen away. So we'd have to kind of jump up and roll in. And, this one night we heard these dogs going crazy and they were coming towards the building, and we walked out on, like, it was just kind of like a concrete kind of outcropping on the outside of the building. And we just went out there to see what was going on, and never had they seen us and kept going. They would see us and bark at us and, let us know that they weren't friendly. They ran right by us, and outside of the building, past those railroad tracks, there were these huge piles of, if you know anything about smelting steel, they had this stuff called coke, and I forget the long word for it, but it just basically looked like black gravelish type of material. Okay. Yeah. And they had huge piles of it that went miles in either way. And these dogs ran up and down the other side of it. And immediately we heard the dogs fighting. We thought they were fighting with each other. And we're looking at each other like, what is going on here? And then we started hearing yelping and realized there was something else over there. And again, I'm making this a shorter version for your
Wait, wait. So what we want is the long version. I just wanted people to know the overview of this. And
okay, I got you.
Before you get started as well, tell us a little bit about your friends as well. Sort of set the characters, if you will, in place for us.
Sure.
Apologies, I didn't mean give us the short version. What I meant was give us a little overview of the story,
Okay.
just for people who, because we deal with a lot of topics on this channel, and it was just to sort of reiterate. But no, we want listen. We want the Hollywood. We want the slow, detailed version, Matt. I do apologize.
No, that's okay. No problem.
Because yeah, I think this location, it looks creepy enough, and this is daytime photograph, okay? And you know yourself how peaceful and tranquil and aesthetic something can look at high noon, and then as soon as midnight rolls in, and that's, you know, it is a different place.
Oh yeah.
You start adding in packs of wild dogs into this as a 14-year-old,
right?
I mean, when you said we liked this place because it had no stairs and we had to climb into it, I mean, I'll be honest, that would take the spring out of my step on this location as a 14-year-old. I'm not going to lie. And the fact that these dogs would just see you and then come after you and I mean, and that's within the world of nature. We're not even into the realm of cryptids yet. And you see, that's the element. And it's going to be interesting to see how these packs of dogs relate to all of this, because I know they're gonna.
For sure.
So if you've just tuned in, everybody, please give us a like, give us a share. Once Jen's finished her stream over on this channel as well, we'll be getting some of her viewership over as well, so please do like and share, push this out for us. And Matt, Beverly, first of all, is there anything that you would like to say or touch on before we start? Because like I say, I'm literally about to go and grab a bag of popcorn. Non-ironically, because this is going to be an incredible story. We've already had a lot of people commenting in the side chat saying they've heard your story. It's terrifying. Is really the main gist of it. So, yeah, here we go. So, Bev, is there anything you want to throw over to Matt before we begin? You're muted as well, Jen. Bev. There we go. She got this. She got
right,
this.
I got it. I fixed
there
it.
You go.
I fixed it. So what I wanted to say, Matt, is very interestingly, as you are speaking and telling us your story, your energies are still all over the place, which is quite interesting after all this time, that they're just very wired and very all over the place. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, you know what? After all these years, you know, when I start going here, it never, you know, am I in a really calm, you know, relaxed mode because of what happened, and it really happened. I always get butterflies and nervous and a little out there, you know, side to side. So yeah, it definitely is still to this day affects me all these years later. I really wanted to say hi real quick to some of people that I recognize them. So everybody, hello, that's over here from my neck of the woods. Tyler, hello, and everybody else. I appreciate you guys coming. So what I'll do is I'll rewind. So, you know, again, 1987, you know, no cell phones, things like that. So the way that we had fun back in those days was, you know, we rode our bikes all over town. We had to go look for fun instead of just, you know, staying at home and looking at your phone. So we would go down to my friends, and I don't remember what really got us, and it was just more age than anything. It's just we're older, we want to do, you know, more kind of crazy type of things. And you know, we were drawn to it again because my one buddy lived right across the street. And you know, we go down there. Aside from these wild dogs, and anybody that doesn't understand about wild dogs in cities, they usually are in areas that are dilapidated and buildings that they're going to knock down, and areas that are not, you know, the types of places that you want to frequent. And they grow up, you know, living with each other. They don't have human attention. So they don't know anything really about people other than, we can get food from where they are. Or they could attack them. They don't want them near it. So aside from these wild dogs, what also was dangerous about this place, besides the buildings, being in the shape of, you go into some of these buildings, you'd have rocks or concrete fall from the ceiling, stairs inside of these places. There'd be missing stairs, so you'd have to hop over them to go up. And, we should have been doing that. But again, we're 14. And something else about Youngstown, Ohio back then, we had a moniker, unfortunately. It was called Murder Town, USA during that era of the late 80s, early 90s, because a lot of gang violence, a lot of shootings. And during that time, Youngstown, Ohio had the highest per capita murder rate in the United States. So that was in an area that, a lot of this stuff happened. And, our parents obviously didn't know we were going down there. So if you were down in this area, you would also occasionally see cars down there that didn't belong down there. There was mafia things tied to Youngstown for many, many years, even into, that era, and they would, get rid of bodies down there. You'd hear gunshots, meaning there was probably somebody being taken care of. And then there were the gangs that would also go down there and take care of business or hide things down there, like, drugs or whatever. And we'd stay away from anybody we saw, as well as people that just worked on the railroad, because they would immediately call police, and we didn't need that happening. My other friends, I'm not going to give their names. I don't want to disrespect their families.
No, 100%.
Especially
100%.
because two of them are gone.
No, for sure.
And there's no way to get permission from them. My other friend is still here.
You can use new names. 100%. You can change the names. That's that.
So
that
to this day, he has severe PTSD from what occurred down there. He, said that someday he would love to, if he can get to that point. And also after he retires, he would like to come on with me and do interviews with me. Right now, it's hard for him because he is in a business that, if somebody sees him on YouTube talking about something like this, and that comes up when you're sitting across people from making deals. Hey, so is that you I saw talking about a dogman or a werewolf on YouTube? Yeah, we're going to pass on working with you. And unfortunately, that's where we are in this day and age. But it is becoming more normal for people to, talk about these experiences, and it's being more, accepted, which I'm very happy about. And what I am very serious about on Planet 412, my YouTube channel, for people to come and feel that there's a safe haven. When you have experiences, you can come and talk about it with me and our crews. Thank you for putting that up. So, if you have experiences, get in touch with me. And just like Ron and Beverly, you can go there and you're going to have a safe haven to discuss these things. So back into the story is we would, we would like to frequent it down there. Aside, we were really into fishing and other stuff, but the dogs, we thankfully never got attacked. But when we would be in that building, they would do anything and everything they could to get at us. So they'd have their front paws up on like where steps used to be, and they were wild. And, there were days when we'd be stuck in there for 45 minutes because they just keep circling the area or lay down and look at us. And there really was no way for us to deal with 4 or 7, however many that day there were with them. And this night that occurred, like I said, we were walking outside to see what was going on. And right outside the building, like in the picture, there were railroad tracks. And the reason that these trains were so close to these buildings is because they would ferry material in and out of these smelting areas and other things to bring supplies, or when steel was finished, they would load these trains up and they would take it to wherever they needed to go. So when we heard them, we, like I said, went outside, and getting back into just across those railroad tracks, they had these huge piles of this material. And Tyler, thanks for saying that, brother. I feel the same about you. Tyler and I met each other real quick. I'm just going to say it at a conference in Texas a couple years ago. So met a lot of good people. And these dogs ran up one side and down the other side, and immediately we start hearing the sounds of dogs biting, attacking. But we couldn't see from where we were standing because these piles of this material were anywhere between 15 to 25 feet high, and all we could do was hear. And then within a minute or less, we started hearing something louder, something much deeper. And we realized that right away there is, thank you, Nikki. There was something over there fighting with these dogs. And not long after we heard this really deep noise of whatever it was, we start hearing yelping. So the other dogs were getting something, handed to them. And what really just absolutely threw the night into insanity was we saw a dog that was midair, thrown, like somebody threw it over one of these piles of material. And this dog came over and hit the ground and yelped and rolled over and got up and limped away. And then another dog actually is coming over the top of this material. But what was different about this dog was it was opposite. So its rear was facing us and its feet were straight up in the air. And it was again like somebody grabbed the dog and threw it. And it hit the ground, and immediately, the dog yelped, and we saw blood on the ground. This dog got up, and you saw a absolutely vicious wound, and it had down its side and along its rib cage, it had like somebody had taken a fillet knife and flayed this dog's side open, and there was blood everywhere, and the dog was limping away. And I always say this, we're dog people. We've always had dogs. We still do. And I was heartbroken seeing this animal so injured, and I remember saying to myself, I hope that dog lives. And
In that moment, right? I mean, you spent your youth outside.
Right.
You're American, and a country with a rich culture of hunting and wildlife and all of this. At that time of your 14 years on this earth, had you ever seen an animal move or be thrown or travel in that way? Because I imagine, because when we see in movies, we see animals being flung and all this kind of stuff, but in reality, what was that moment like for you? Because what was your brain? How was your mind at 14 comprehending that a dog had just been launched in that way? I mean, it must have been, I don't even know how you would process that.
There wasn't any mindset really. It was complete shock. We were all just like, what? And none of us were speaking. We were just staring. And not long after that dog had hit, another one had come over, and then all of a sudden the ones that were with it, they all ran, and they ran the way that they came. And again, we're in complete shock. We weren't, at least me, I wasn't having any type of thought that was making sense. I thought I was just like almost in a dream-like state. It was just shock. And we were watching these dogs, which was to our left, go back in the area that we used as well to come down there and get to where we were. And one of my buddies who was on my left, just behind me, he had said out loud, he goes, "Guys, hey, what's that over there?" And we all looked quickly to our right. And again, the dogs were one thing, but this is a completely other level of shock and awe. We looked, and what comes crawling up to the top of this mound and staying there was the largest animal we had ever seen in our lives. It was wolf-like. It was black. It was blacker than the night sky behind it. So it stood out with night sky. And it was like 9:30, in between 9:30, 10 p.m. at night. And like I said, we had a huge fire going behind us inside the building. And even though we had made a couple rows of this kind of makeshift wall, there was still a large gap above that. That light was escaping from this fire that we had, and it just was coming out and illuminating the area where this dog, where this wolf-like creature was. And I've always said this, it was so large that it just seemed fake. It seemed like, like we were dreaming, that this couldn't be real. And the size comparison, and I've always said the same thing, and anybody that knows me knows I've never changed this. After this experience had occurred, I did years of research and looking up things, and it didn't take us much longer after it occurred to, agree with each other. The size of this animal was like a polar bear size. It was so crazily large. That's why I keep saying, and I always say, it seemed fake. It just seemed like this can't be happening. This thing can't be real in front of us. And what it did, it didn't see us at that point. It was turned, so we saw it lengthwise at the top of this pile of material, and it was watching the dogs leave the area as well. And I don't know, if people will find this funny or what. It wasn't funny to us at all. The dog basically lifted its leg, and was a male. You could tell right from the beginning, and it, let itself mark
Yeah.
its territory. And what freaked us out about that, freaked me out, is when it did its business, it was so strong, the stream from this thing, it was hitting this material, and pieces were flying up in the air. You could hear the noise was audible of it doing that. And it freaked me out so bad, I started getting the thought in my head, we need to get out of here. This is not good.
Yeah.
This thing's going to notice us. And we had nowhere to go at that point. And just as I'm thinking this, my buddy who had saw it first, he was over my left shoulder, had started to walk backwards. He said he was going to go back in the building, and he tripped and fell into this makeshift wall, and it caused a very loud noise of metal scraping on concrete. And immediately this thing snapped its head and looked right at us. And you want to talk about palpable fear, and we just froze. And it saw us, and
Just
it
before you get to the next part of the story, Matt, right? I need more details, right? So
sure.
when it came over the hill originally, would you say it was more in like dog mode, on all fours?
It was on all fours.
It was on all fours.
Yes.
And it's done its business. And the size of a polar bear. Now, I'm just telling you now, if something's pea stream, right, can break chunks off of stuff, that's not something you want getting a hold of you.
No,
right?
no.
Let's be honest here. So, on all fours, big, huge, monster-sized dog. Your friend has now made the classic movie error, and take us through it again. Carry on.
Yeah, he, again, if you've ever heard, metal scraping on concrete, it was very loud, and right away anybody would have heard this, and this dog creature, wolf, whatever you want to call it, snapped its head, and it saw us. And immediately the first thing that we all noticed, and obviously we talked about this for decades after this happened, we saw immediately its eyes, and its eyes were not showing any type of eye shine. So I want to get that out of the way real quick. It wasn't eye shine, it was a glowing light that was amber orange kind of color, and it was um, emanating this, whatever it was, emanating from inside, and it was causing its eyes to shine and very brightly, but you could still see the pupils and everything inside of its eyes. And it was in that right away is again, size number one. Number two, its eyes are shining. Yeah, this is just to let anybody know who's not familiar, Sibylla Irwin is her name. She is a graphic artist. She has a YouTube channel called Sketching Encounters. And her and I worked for about a year where her and I, she made this. She is an amazing talent. And this is almost 100% exactly what my friends and I saw. And she did an incredible job. She has all kinds of videos on Sketching Encounters. And I'm actually going to interview her on my channel this week. But those eyes, the way they're glowing is exactly the way they were glowing.
Yeah.
The eyes were so bright. Go ahead, Ron. Did you need to say anything?
Look, someone in the side chat is saying Ron's right there with you. That's why he's asking you these questions, right? And I am so there right now. Now, when you said about the glowing eyes, you said it was it? Do you feel like the glow was behind the eyes? Did you say, or something was coming?
Yes, it was coming from internally. Something in this thing, whatever supernatural was going on, it was a power source that was inside of it that was shining these eyes. And we've seen, I'm not a hunter, I've never hunted, but I've seen a number of different kinds of animals with eye shine, and this was nothing. Eye shine.
And that's another prevalent point to this. 14 years old, growing up in the woods in America, you're going to know what when you shine a torch or a car goes past and you see eyes that reflect back. We have to assume that there's massive credibility to your knowledge of what nature and eye shine looks like just from where you grew up.
Well, I actually grew up in the city in Youngstown, Ohio. It's very, city, but sure. I grew up going with my sister's boyfriend and other people shooting. And again, I never hunted. I've never shot an animal, but I'm real big into target shooting and I enjoyed it. So I grew up going to areas outside of the city and seeing these. I've seen bear before and deer and, so I saw many kinds of animals growing up, but just in the city itself,
of course,
you see dogs or whatever, and cats, their eyes light up as soon as headlights hit them or whatever. And this was not eye shine. There's no way on earth anything has eye shine like this. And this thing all of a sudden lets out, you can hear a growl starting, and it starts to come toward us. And it roars at us, and we absolutely felt, anybody that has ever heard of infrasound, it is a noise that animals on, normal animals, elephants, whales, tigers, lions, what it is it's a inaudible noise that mostly predators utilize when they roar or growl, that causes prey or whatever to be affected physically from it. And you guys can look it up, and what it does is it causes internal organs and liquid like blood and other liquids in your body to shake, and it just makes it much easier for predators to dispatch prey. Well, that's exactly what happened to us, because after it let out this roar, I felt strange. Two of my buddies started to go down their knees. One of my friends, the one to my left, said, "I feel like I'm going to pass out." Another friend of mine was having he was gagging, like he was going to throw up. I didn't fall to my knees, but I was bent over with my hands on my knees, and I had my head up, but I felt like I wanted to go down. I refused to take my eyes off this thing because I was horrified that if I, looked down, that was going to be it. And then the next thing that occurred was um, my world and my buddies' worlds were turned upside down. This thing goes from four, legs it's standing on to standing up on two legs, and its front ones, its top legs were not legs, they were actually arms. And it stood up, and as it's making these noises, you could see its hands were not like dog paws or wolf paws. It had fingers, and it started coming towards us, and its gait was so large that it was taking a couple steps, and it had gotten halfway to where we were. So, you've seen, anybody that's seen, Sasquatch documentaries, and, people measure the gait that they have when you're getting into something, 8 to however feet tall. It's huge, the gait. So this thing stood up and started coming towards us, and we just, falling over each other, turned and went back in the building, still feeling strange from whatever it had just done to us with this roar. And we go in the building, and I don't know why, I'll never know why, but we just decided to go up to the third floor. I think one of us, I wasn't in front, another friend was. I think it was just he ran up and we just followed. And the stairs, some of them, like I said before, were missing. So you had to kind of hop over to get up. And we got up to the third floor, and there was so on the first floor, you could walk into the center of the building, and you could look straight up, and you could see the second, third, and fourth floor from the first. So like the floors in the center of each room were gone. But in the center of each room, there was like a square and a half concrete wall. So if you're up on the third floor, you could walk to the center of the room, and you could look down and see the rest of the building. And you had to, it come up like about here. And we got up there, and we were freaking out. My one friend who had saw it first was just absolutely going insane, crazy, screaming, "What is that? I want to go. We got to get out of here. I want to go home. I want to go home." And we started shushing him and yelling at him, "Be quiet. You're going to bring this thing inside the building." He wasn't having it. He didn't hear us. He just screaming, "I want to get out of here. Get me out of here." And I, was standing behind him, and I grabbed him from behind, and I grabbed him around his mouth. And, I was a big kid. I'm a big guy. I'm almost 6'4". When I was a kid at 14, I was still big. So I grabbed him. I didn't mean to do what I did, but I lifted him off of his feet. So I had my hand here, and his feet are dangling, and my other friends are in front, and they're screaming, using choice words of shut up, be quiet, shut that blank up. It's going to come in here. And finally, you could tell he was starting to lose, consciousness from not having enough air. And we said, "If you stop screaming, I'll let you down. Are you going to stop?" And I put him down. As soon as I let go of his mouth, he and everyone shut up, be quiet. And just then, we were getting ready to kind of hide ourselves. We hear a thump that went through the floor of the building. And then, if you have a dog or something, you can hear, like on concrete or hardwood floors, their nails. Well, we heard a loud thump, and then nails sound, and I immediately knew what it was. This thing was coming in the building. So it had crawled up onto this outcropping that we did. I mean, it was bigger than us standing up, so it wouldn't be that hard. And we froze. we just froze. And I remember staring at the opening of where we came in, and all of a sudden you see the front of this thing's mouth, and it was back on all fours, and it's slowly coming in, and then all of a sudden you see more of it, and it's on the first floor, and it's looking around the first floor, and the light from the fire hit it, and it shined its shadow on the far wall. Yeah, oh man, that gives me goosebumps. That is basically exactly what we saw right there. And its shadow was so big that it had completely blacked out the far wall. So there was no light from the fire being shined on the wall. It was just its shadow blocked everything out. And it's going around the first floor, and you can see its nose sniffing as it's going. So it's smell. Oh, that's a great picture right there. I mean, that is basically the size of what that thing was.
And you got to remember, this is a man, right? You're 14 years old. I mean, at best, up to maybe here. And
yeah, we were at its belly button, basically.
We were, I mean, the size.
They're so huge, polar bears. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So you imagine that thing, the polar bear you saw, but what you have on the screen. And it was just nightmare fuel. And it's still going through. I remember me constantly, it kept running through my head. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up. This can't be real. This can't be happening. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And I wasn't waking up. It was really happening.
Yeah, like I don't get shook very often, right? But I'm this is
I'm right with you, bro. I never have given an interview or spoke about this and never been calm, or I always go back there. There's no way for me not to be affected.
It's re-traumatization. It's reliving that. Regardless of what trauma people have been through, whether it's in a cryptid or paranormal realm, or in some of the horrific, more traditional human on human horrors that occur, trauma and reliving that is something that, you know, I'm very, very grateful you're willing to go through that, Matt, and take us on this journey with you, because it isn't easy. And
no,
I told you before the chat, we're a very large community of believers, right? There's a lot of people who once were fence sitters who are now believers, and even we've got some very respectful fence sitters as well who want to believe in these things. And you're taking us there, man. Like, I am there with you right now, and I'm just trying to, because I mean, when you told that moment about your friend when you went up the stairs, it's movie scenes, Matt. It's like we've all seen that scene in the movie where, like, the one guy in the bunker starts to freak out because the opposition's coming close, and someone has to slap him in the face or whatever. And it's like, it's just horrific. Carry on. And again, I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to paint the scene on that with this, because again,
that's perfect.
Being confronted with something this size, that even if it was a polar bear,
horrifying.
At least you have a point of reference. You'd be like, oh, for some reason there's a polar bear here.
Yeah.
When we're talking about a amber-eyed 10-foot, what once was a 4-legged mega dog is now a
walking like a man.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, carry on, Matt. You're now facing the eye of the storm, I would imagine. This thing is at the door.
I want to say real quick to Chris 420. This is in Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio. If you came in a little late, Youngstown is an hour from either Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or Cleveland, Ohio. So we're smack dab in the middle. So that's right where we are, Northeast Ohio. So this thing is walking around the first floor on all fours, and you can see actually the eye shine again. So it walked past the wall where the shadow was blocking out any light, and it had turned its head. And when it did, this is again showing it was an eye shine. It actually lit up a portion of the wall from its eyes. So you saw that amber orange color when it walked past the wall, and it turned its head, and then it turned again. The light just went zip, like headlights. and it started to walk towards the fire, and still the whole time it's, sniffing. And right when it came by the fire, something else supernatural happened that made us realize this was not any type of normal creature. Was when it walked near the fire, first of all, we had a gigantic fire going. So we had to stand at least 10, 15 feet away from it because the heat was so hot that, we could never stand right next to it. And then you're inside of a concrete and metal building, which makes the heat even more hot. So this thing walked, and it was a foot or two away from the fire. It did not care at all what this fire was throwing at it. And what happened was, as it's walking and the light from the fire was hitting it, we were able to see that again, it had hands, and they were not human like. They were a strange kind of look to it. And I had never realized what they looked like till years later when I saw a picture of a raccoon, and it had giant raccoon hands. That is the
Let me pull them up. Let me pull them
For
up.
sure.
Raccoon head.
Just giant. It was identical to raccoon's hands, huge talons on the end of its fingers that I did not see. One of my buddies said he saw it. So I didn't see that. Yeah, I mean, identical. And again, the hair standing up on the back of my hand, it looked identical to those. It was.
And do you know what? I'll do the nerd math, right? If we scale up a raccoon to the size of a polar bear, I will get a scale on those hands and get you like an actual scale, because I mean, they look, when you see them on a raccoon, right? If a polar bear size version of those hands, those fingers,
Huge.
they're going to be
Huge.
like this.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like this.
Huge.
Yeah.
Your whole it just get around your whole head, man.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And again, I didn't notice my one buddy said he saw it had huge black talons on the end of its fingers. I didn't notice it. I was looking at other things. I saw the hands. I didn't ever notice that, though.
I'd
You
be
could
blocking
hear,
it.
though, when it was walking, you could hear the clicking as its each hand or back feet were hitting the ground. And we got a really good look, and I got a really good look at the anatomy of this thing. So it was jet black from head to toe, except from the back of its neck all the way down to its tail, there was a white stripe that went all the way down. And it wasn't super bright, but it was bright enough that you could see the white. And it had the ears you could see out of the picture. They were wolf-like. When you see big dogs like maybe Dobermans or German Shepherds, when they're listening, you can see the ears cup, and then they kind of turn intermittently. It's listening. That's what the ears were doing. He was listening to this area we were in. And then another sound had picked up, and I picked up on. You heard a dripping, and what was going on was there was saliva pouring. Now, when I say pouring, it was just saliva pouring, dripping, long, huge streaks of saliva hitting the ground. You could hear it. And what that said to me was, this thing is salivating. It's looking for dinner. And I got even more disturbed. And then the next supernatural thing that occurred, other than the eyes and standing up, was it had the fire to its left. And one moment it's lifted its left arm and it put it down on the ground. And all of a sudden the entire arm had just almost disappeared. If anybody has seen, and I'm sure most people here have seen, any of the Predator movies, when it would like cause itself to disappear, you could still see an outline of the arm, but it was almost completely gone. If it wasn't for the fire shining on the arm, you would have thought it was gone. And what also was strange is, when it was by the fire, if you've ever seen the sun, like video of the sun, how it has like magnetic kind of storms, and you see kind of the way the fire will kind of pull out from the sun itself. You saw that the fire had kind of like was pulled towards its arm when it was like blinked out. And it only happened for like 3 seconds. And then all of a sudden, one more step and it was back to black. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. And the only reason I knew how to compare that to the Predators, when I saw the movie in the 90s, I was like, oh my God, that's what that thing's arm did. And I remember my one best friend was with me when I saw it, and we looked at each other in the movie theater, and I was like, oh my God, that's what its arm did. And he's like, he just was shook. And we told our other 2 buddies, are you gonna go see this movie? That it turns into invisible. It looked just like that werewolf's arm. And that's what we called it, a werewolf. We didn't know what dogmen were back then. And that was another thing that was really difficult for us to handle was, all of a sudden, you have mythology and TV, movies, lore, and but it's not real, right? Then all of a sudden, bam, right in the face. And there it is in real life. And it really exists. And that was another part of that night that was so difficult to handle mentally, was that, if this thing exists, what else exists out there that they tell us is fake? So this thing is walking around, and aside from that, its hair was not long, super long and shaggy as you see in the pictures that I gave you. It wasn't real long, maybe 2 inches long at the most. The tips of its hair almost had a translucent kind of quality to them, and its tail was extremely long and thick, but it wasn't bushy. If you've ever seen like a panther or a leopard's tail, really thick but not hairy. It's like real, just, I don't know what the word to use. It just was super short hair, and it was not like scraggly haired all over. It was almost like groomed. It was very clean looking. It just didn't. I've seen pictures of AI dog. Very similar to that. The best one I've seen is panther tails, Black Panther. That's the best one I've ever seen to compare to what we saw. But just like there, the hair is super short and not long. There it is right there. That is perfect. Its tail, that is exactly what I saw. Absolutely exact. And
And
right.
you'd sent another image as well here.
Yeah, that is another picture Sibylla Irwin had made, and that is basically almost 100% the side view of what this thing looked like. Super short hair, not scraggly, no mane. The ears, it didn't really even have hair really, sticking out noticeably from the ears. Just strangely manicured. It was just, is it just the way it lives or what?
That's an interesting. I think that's quite an interesting point. Because when you look at this image and then we go back to the image of the panther, you can see. I would say that this panther looks eloquently groomed.
Yes, and almost like black. It was almost ink-like or black oil, and the way it moved was almost. Some people say, are you crazy when you say this? But the way it moved was almost beautiful. It was very graceful, and just the way it moved, you could tell it could chase down any human being in a heartbeat or other animals. And that's a great, I shut down Sibylla numerous times, and she wasn't upset about it. She said, man, I want you to tell me if this does not look exactly the way you remember. I want you to tell me. And again, we worked together for almost a year constantly. And that is, I would say, 95% exactly what I saw that night. And as we are looking over the side at this thing, and, we were frozen. We just couldn't move. The next thing we saw is this thing sniffs the air, and it stops, and it looks right up at us, and it caught our scent, and it knew where we were, and it went from 4 feet to 2 again, And what it did next was it roared at us again, and it threw its arms out. It was, and I'm a huge comic geek, and the best way I can describe it, it was like a comic book kind of pose.
Wolverine with the claws out, right?
Yeah, it threw its arms out by the side and it roared at us and it shook the whole building. I felt it go through my feet, but we weren't affected the way we were outside. And the only thing that we discussed with each other for years is, why don't you think we got weird, like sick, when this thing roared in the building? And you heard like reverberations go through like metal in the building, but I believe, and that's almost, I think, great job, Ron. That's basically exactly what it did. It was looking up at us, threw its arm out to the side, roared. And we believe why we didn't have the impact from it roaring the second time is we had, right under our chest, this concrete wall in front of us. And the only thing I can think of is that wall protected us from the roar the second time. And what it did next is, after it looked at us, it looked around and it saw the staircase. It looked back at us. And I don't know if it was just a growl or what, but I almost got the sense that this thing gave us a sick, like, kind of, I know it was probably growling, but it almost came off like a smile. And it turned and it shot for the stairs. It went back down on all fours and it hit the stairs. And as it turned to come up, the tail, you could see the tail had kind of curled, and its right side was towards the wall, and the tail had turned to the left. It was using the tail almost like a rudder, a weight balance. It was so weird. You could see exactly what it did. So if you've ever rode like snowmobiles or four-wheelers, when you make a turn, you got to kind of lean the other way so you don't tip. That's the way the tail looked like, what it was doing. And it shot up those stairs and it turned. And just when that was running up the stairs, two of my buddies, one had started freaking again and he ran. Now there was one more floor, excuse me. And on the fourth floor, there was another short set of stairs that took you out to the roof. So he ran up this staircase and he was out of my sight. And my other buddy ran outside. There was a doorway that took you out to the fire escape, except the one thing about the fire escape was you could take it to run up to the roof, but from the second floor down, it had rusted away and fell. And whatever stairs were left from that point down were all at the bottom of the building, like in a big heap. So we couldn't get out from the fire escape. So he ran up. You could even hear his feet on the metal stairs running up to the fourth floor.
How in your life, Matt, can you ever just be in someone's house, right? And like their dog comes in and then you hear the dog on the laminate flooring or the wooden floor. You're a very well-adjusted human being, Matt, from our interaction right now. I would not be that way.
I have my moments, though. I'll be honest with you. Talking about it has helped. At first when I started, I had the mindset of, I don't want to tell anybody. I don't, and I was also, I'll get into also why I didn't talk about it for a long time. But, I've had to seek, help through the years. I don't go anymore, but there was about a 10, 15 year span that I'm not ashamed to say it, I was going to, get some psychological help. And my other buddy who's still alive still to this day, he's on like 4 different medications. He sees a doctor twice a week. He has a counselor.
This is the thing though, Matt. So when we take the non-believers into account, right? How do you then, as a non-believer, right? How do we write off the medications? How do we write off the therapies? How do we write all of this? Is it a collective hallucination for the haters out there? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like if it was you on your own, Matt, we could be like, oh, that was a great story,
Yeah,
Matt.
I was just going to say that if I
Your
was
own
by
mind. But
myself.
there's a collective group. There's these moments of like, for example, if you're going to make this up, you're not throwing in the predator leg part. If you make this up, I'll tell you
And
that
this
right.
was before the movie, so
I'm just saying that right now. If you're making this up, you ain't throwing in the predator leg bit, because that is just it. Do you know what I mean? And your little details, like it's sniffing up in the air and things like this.
it's locked in my brain. I'll
It's
never
now
forget
in my brain, Matt. I'm telling you, bro. I am there with you right now, and I am not. I'm just trying to keep this conversation going so we don't have to go back to the story and I don't continue to live your trauma with you.
I appreciate you guys are here, because I'll be honest with you, it helps. You know,
This isn't the last time we're going to be talking to each other. I'll tell you this right now, man.
For sure, brother. Anytime.
I'm telling you, because anyway, again, apologies, Sideshow. We're also as well, keep your questions coming in. We will collate them and get them after Matt's story. If Ron doesn't drag this out to a 6-hour live stream, because I keep
that's okay.
because I keep getting scared. Right. So it's coming up the stairs, Matt.
Right.
Your friends ran off.
We were gone. It's me and my best friend, and he's to my right. And where we were standing, again, we have this half wall in front of us, but to my left, only about, I don't know, a few feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, is the staircase. And as this thing's flying up the stairs, you know, the fear is just so bad. Like, you know, I remember feeling like, you know, maybe I was going to pass out. I was so afraid. And he was stuck. I was stuck. I couldn't move. I was just completely glued to where I was. And as it's coming up the stairs, it hit the last set before it would get to me. And I started to have a moment where I truly 100% believed this was my moment. This was my time. I'm going to die. My friends are all going to be killed. You know, and I had, you know, I said before, I didn't see my life flash before my eyes, but somebody pointed out, Matt, yes, you did. Because what I saw was, in a heartbeat, I saw my family. You know, I played American football through college, and you know, I was getting ready to go to the high school that all my family went to. It's called Ursuline High School in Youngstown, Ohio. It's a Catholic private school, and it's got one of the best football programs in the country. And I was proud because my dad had played there. I was getting ready to go there as a freshman and play, and I had thought about that. I'm not going to play ball. I thought about you know, I had a dog at home. I all went bing, 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 bing. And then next thing, this thing is halfway up the last flight of stairs to where we were. And just as and you could see muscles start to ripple on its arms and chest. It was getting ready to pounce. And I would have been the first one that it got. I was right there. And right before it did whatever it was getting ready to do, I will always say this. I've always said it. You know, I had a near-death experience in April of 2022. I had a really bad accident and almost died, and I had a near-death experience. So I kind of can see a connection to what happened then and what was going on then. So I truly believed that was it. That's what was going to happen. And I believe that there was divine intervention right at that moment. There could have not been any of it. It wasn't luck. Somebody stepped in, because right when it was getting ready to pounce, all of a sudden a train was coming by the outside of the building. And what also was strange was, whenever these trains came by, they never hit their whistle, their train horn. Never have we ever, and probably 30 to 50 times we'd been down there prior, had we ever heard a train hit their horn. And I don't know, again, I believe it was divine intervention, but I don't know if it was they saw the fire coming, the light from the fire coming out, or what. But they came by the building and they hit their horn. And right when that horn went off, this thing was only 3 feet from me. It stopped. and it turned around and it looked at the opening of the building where it came through, and it turned and it looked at me again, and then it turned back and it looked at the train, and it was super loud, the axles hitting the tracks, and then it stopped and it looked at me and it curled its teeth back and growled, and it did one of like these, like it was ready to you're getting away, and it turned around and it started to run back down. The only thing I could think of is it was thinking more people, more humans are coming. I don't know. And as it's running down the stairs, the final supernatural thing that had happened is when it hit the top of the final staircase from the second floor going down to the first, all of a sudden it started changing shape. And all I can say is by the time it left the building, it was just like this amorphous black kind of shadow. And it left the building like this. It went, psht, it was gone. And it still had a little bit of shape. You could still kind of see ears and a muzzle. It didn't have legs or feet touching the ground. It was off the ground. And it just turned into like a shadow, and it was gone in a heartbeat. And my buddy and I started screaming for help. Help us, help us. We wanted, we saw the train and screaming. And I had tears rolling down my eyes. And our two friends said they had heard us screaming, because then they came back down and they start yelling for help. And we thought, we're saved. Thank God, we're okay. And then the train was getting further and further and further. And then all of a sudden it was gone.
Oh,
and there was nobody coming in the building, and the fear set back in that this thing is going to come walking right back into the building. It's going to kill us and everything. And about, I don't know, I'd say 40 to 60 minutes, we're up on that third floor, and it didn't come back in. And we started talking, we have to leave. It was now 11 something at night. Our parents, 14 years old, had to be wondering where we were. And, I remember saying, guys, we've got to leave. We have to go. And my one buddy who had lost everything earlier starts going postal. I'm not going out there. I want my mom and dad, crying.
Oh yeah, I'm not going out there, man.
He'd lost it. And
Yeah,
we're trying to talk sense into him. It's going to come back. It for sure will come here. If we stay, it's going to kill us. So we start making our way down, and we hit the second floor, and we waited a little while. And the whole time we started ignoring him. He's just going crazy. Please, no, please don't leave. And we can't go. It's going to be out there waiting for us. And we worried about it too. But the fear was so palpable of, if we stay, for sure it's coming back. So we made it down to the first floor, and we're like, guys, we got to go out. We got to hit the ground running. We got to just run as fast as we can. Hopefully it's not out there, but we have no choice. And he's screaming and bloody murder. I'm not leaving. And then I grabbed him, and I remember holding his shirt, and I got real loud, and I said, listen to me. I said, we're leaving. You can either effing come with us now, or you can stay by yourself, and you're going to die. But I promise you, we're leaving you here. And no, man, please don't do this to me. I said, listen, you're going with us or die. And we started to leave. And my one buddy said, we can't leave him here. I'm like, fine. And we forced him to grab me and my best friend's shirts, and he was holding on to both. And we dragged him from the building, so much so that when he was pulling on our shirts, like it was choking me, it stretched our shirts out. We pulled him from the building. And we got down, and, we were about to jump down on that outcropping. One of the things that I didn't think about till right then was, when in the daytime you could see, like if you looked underneath that outcropping, it went way back into the building. So this thing could have been under, waiting for us. And that was a fear of mine when we dropped down. It'll be behind us and waiting. And we jumped down, and we kind of looked and started running. And again, this is a half an hour walk to this building from my buddy's house. So as we're going, every noise, every time someone kicked a rock or a pebble, or the wind picked up and the leaves on the tree, every noise, we were horrified, and we'd stop and turn around. Is that it? Is that it? Finally, after I'd say 20 something minutes, we made it, and we're all breathing super hard. And we come to where we always had entered. And what it was when you would go down, we'd have to go down a giant hill of like gravel. So you could walk down this hill and turn yourself sideways and have your feet turned sideways and just kind of walk yourself down. But going back up, you had to like get down on all fours and crawl. And we would always make fun of whoever it happened to, except this night, somebody would always lose their footing and they'd slide back down and it was it was exhausting, so we're crawling up, and it happened to each of us because we were trying so hard to get back up. We'd start sliding back down, and the immediate nightmare feel was, is it behind me? Is it behind me? I remember screaming at myself, is it behind me? Is it behind me? And we're looking, and finally we made it to the top. And as we were going, we heard these wild dogs again. And we got horrified, thinking that this signaled that this thing was back again, that these dogs were near us. And is it going to fight with them? Is it near us? Thankfully, we didn't see it again. We made it up to the top. I even had to lay down on my stomach and stick my arm out and pull him up. One of my buddies, when my other buddy was doing it with the other, and we ran across the street. We finally got to my buddy's house, and nobody was home. I don't know if they went to the dinner or movies or whatever.
Even that, Matt. Even that. And you get the kids, they get out of the woods, they're running down the road, they get to the parents' house, and the first parents' house, there's no one home. Nobody. They can't get in. This is a nightmare, Matt.
It was. We got there, and we could see, no lights were on. The car wasn't there. My buddy who lived there, he says, "Oh, hell, we're not here." And he had a garden hose sitting out. We were all so I remember I've never been so thirsty in my life. I remember grabbing it, and I was drinking it, and I drank so much water, I got sick. And we all drank, and none of us spoke. And we sat. I was on the porch with one of my buddies. Another one was on the stairs, and another one was in the front yard. And we all were in shock, complete and utter shock. And we were staring. I remember I was staring at, you could see the top of that the Jeanette blast furnace that they've knocked down since then. I think it got knocked down in 1993. There's actually a video on YouTube of it being knocked down. And I could see the stacks, and I remember just staring at that area, thinking about what just happened. And then it got even later, and we said, well, we've got to go. We went back to my best friend's house, and as soon as we walked in, and we're covered in dirt and soot and all whatever else. And as soon as we walk in the back door, my best friend's dad is, "Where the blank of you guys? What the hell is going on? I've been going crazy looking for you," and blah, blah, blah. And, he's like, "Matt, your dad's going to kill you." And we were just, some of us were crying. And he looks at us, finally realizing, he's like, "What is going on here? Where were you?" And we told him where we were, and he went ballistic. "What are you doing down there?" I'm not going to out my best friend's dad, but all I will say is this, and I've said this in all my other interviews: he worked for the city. So he was in charge of a lot of things, and he knew exactly where it was and he's like, "What are you doing down there? That place is falling apart. People, we find, police find bodies down there. People hide their drugs down there, but you guys are lucky you're still alive." And we told him what happened, and his mom had just turned the corner, and she's still alive, but he's not. And she's a rough tough cookie. And she looked at us and said, "What the hell are you guys talking about? What is going on here?" And he said, "Let me deal with it." She goes, "Go ahead. I'm going to bed." And she walked up, and she didn't want to hear our story. She thought we were just covering our butts from being late. And he called my dad on the phone to tell him, because my dad had called like 100 times. And he said, "Your dad's on his way." And normally I'd be afraid, I didn't care. And we told him what happened. And he didn't seem like he was unbelieving. He wasn't, it was almost like he knew what we were talking about. And my dad got there because I only lived like 5 minutes from there, and he came in and he even knocked on the door. He just opened there. He looked at me, started screaming at me, and my buddy's dad said, my dad's name was Ken. My mom and dad are not here anymore, and he said, "Ken, come with me," and he took him in the other room. And I remember hearing his dad talking, and all of a sudden I hear my dad go, "What the hell are you talking about? What?" And they come back in, and after a few more minutes, because it got a little quiet, but you could hear the murmur talking going. And he comes up, my dad and him, and he said, "Matt, let's go right now." And we left. And in the car, I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying, "Dad, please believe me," blah, blah, blah. He's like, "Listen to me. You're not going to talk about this with your family," because there's 5 kids in my family. My younger brother's only a year younger than me. And he's like, "Don't say anything. You're a mother. You're already in enough trouble as it is. If your younger brother hears this, he'll never sleep again. Just shut your mouth." And as soon as we walked in, my mom was waiting, and she's got tears in her eyes. She thought, somebody kidnapped me or something. And as soon as she's like, "Where were you?" I immediately start telling her what happened. And my dad goes, "Shut your mouth. What is wrong with you?" And she's like, "Ken, what is he talking?" She goes, "Betty, they saw a bear. They were almost attacked by him." She goes, "What are you talking about?" She goes, he said, "Told her, go to bed. I'll deal with it." And, he told me, "You can't talk about this kind of stuff." My buddy's dad, made us later swear an oath that we wouldn't talk about it and tell our friends, he said, because, besides anything else, was, the place was falling apart. Like I said before, we'd be there and a huge chunk of concrete had come from the top floor. If that hits you, that's like what they call them widowmakers.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
he's like, you tell your friends at school, everybody's going to want to go down there and
Yeah,
see
dude,
what's going on.
14 years old, you're invincible. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I get it, but it's
Well, I'm going to finish right here. So we kept talking about it the next week. And every time my best friend would talk to his dad, he would tell him, "I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk." Finally, he told me and my buddies about a week later, he's like, "My dad finally talked to me about it." And he actually sat down with him and basically said to him, "Again, don't ever go down there, blah, blah, blah." And he, warned us that he would get us in trouble with the law and all that. He basically told him that he knew what this thing was, that officers in Youngstown had known about, hearing stories about some kind of something down there. And he believed my buddy. And, we didn't go down there till we were in our lower 20s. And, it was
wait, you went
very
back.
nervous.
You went
What's
back
that?
there.
Yeah, we went back. Yeah, we were armed.
Oh, yeah, you were armed. Oh, yeah,
Right.
your armaments had armaments, Matt. Your
I'm gonna
armaments
say
had
this
armaments.
too. We had little pathetic little guns when we went down because it was Youngstown. We didn't shoot at anything. We didn't shoot. We just had them down there because it was a bad time. And it was like a 25 caliber, a 22. And I had stolen my dad's 38 out of his bedroom when we went down there. I'm going to tell you this. We never once, any of us, had the urge or even thought we had weapons, because if we would have shot at this thing, it would not have done a thing. And this
Oh,
thing
it would
would
have
have
done something, Matt. It would have made it mad.
made it pissed for
It would have made
sure.
it mad. All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we went down there when I think we were like 21, 22 years old, and nervous the whole time. I was very nervous, and it was in the daytime. And we went into the building, and it had like big pillars on the bottom that went all the way through. And
Matt, was it all of you that went back, the whole group?
yeah, all 4 of us, and there was somebody else. I mean, how
This is
old
like
was I?
this is
I'm
like a
sorry, it was
werewolf
before my
movie
20s.
meets.
We
It's like
weren't even 20.
yeah, this is like it. The story of it, the clown meets a werewolf story right now. This is what this feels like. The
We
kids have
went
been
down there, like
traumatized.
I said, a
Oh,
couple years. It was only 2-3 years later. Now that I come to think of it, and it had these 4 pillars that went inside of the building that were like the foundation pillars, and they were probably like, I don't know, 4 feet wide, and the roof was the high ceilings were maybe, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet high. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when this thing stood up at towards that end, hey Tyler, um, it stood up, and widthwise, you could not see the pillar from the sides. So widthwise, it was at least 4 feet wide. And when it stood up, it had to be at least 10 to 12 feet tall. I'm going to say maybe 10 and a half, 11 at the most. But it was ridiculously tall because we looked at, each one of us were looking at this pillar, and we're trying to think of where it was. And it was 10, over 10 it had to be. And this thing has stuck with us forever. And my buddies died. You know, I will say this about them, God rest their souls. They aren't here anymore because of what occurred when we were younger. They started drinking and doing other things at a young age. And unfortunately, when they got a little older, they were doing a little more. And they both died um, trying to deal mentally with things that we had found out. And they unfortunately died. All I'm gonna say is just dealing with.
yeah. I know. Listen,
So, and the other buddy, like I said, he's still to this day, you know, seeing doctors, and you know, that's basically what occurred.
Jesus.
So that's
Well,
what happened.
first of all, thanks for sharing that, Matt. And it's tragic to hear, obviously, the passing of your friends,
Yeah,
especially
that's
you,
the hardest part.
especially when I imagine in your mind, there's only those that went through it that truly believe and know what occurred. And as few of you are left walking on this earth, it's almost like you're losing the loneliness. I imagine can kind of
Oh,
creep when people that have lived through something like that start not
you know
being
what?
here.
I left something out, Ron. I apologize. This is important, and I left this out. So, one of the things trying to deal with what occurs, you know, I'm half Lebanese, and um, where we went to church our whole lives is, and again, I'm not afraid to say where I grew up and what school I went to. I have nothing to hide. Um, in fact, if you go to What Lurks Beneath, one of my best friends, Josh Nanocchio, has a channel. He interviewed me there, and that's the most viral interview I've ever given. That has every little snippet of information from me growing up. So I don't hide anything. And the church that we all went to, I still go to now, is called St. Maron's Church. It's a Maronite Rite Catholic church, which Lebanese frequent Maronite. And I started to go see the priest there. His name was Father Ashkar, and I started seeing him, and I told him what occurred and how I was having a lot of problems. And again, what you started bringing up, Ron, about having to be quiet and not talk about it, like feeling like I'm in a box and like hiding away from the world, never sharing with anybody aside from my other friends. And I told him, and I fully expected him not to believe me and to say something else. And he told me he believed me, which caused me to break down. And something he said that's always stuck with me is he said, you know, Matt, there are things in this world that people don't understand. They sometimes things bleed, and this is exactly what he said. Sometimes things bleed into our world, into our realm that are not supposed to be here. And he mentioned exorcists and exorcisms and demons, and he believed this thing was like a hellhound or a demon or something. And he believed, number one, we were lucky to live, and he believed 100% there was divine intervention, that God saved our lives. And he said that he was aware of otherworldly types of things that he's been privy to, other things that he's been privy to in all the years he was a priest, and just said, I believe you. So that was an important part of the story.
Matt, we believe you, just to be clear.
I appreciate that.
I'm telling you, man, you took me on a journey.
It's not easy, I'll be honest.
I'm like, where is Netflix? Why is Netflix not being in touch? Like, what is going on? This is why am I not hearing about Matt from Netflix new #1 series?
I will tell you something.
It's trending. Okay.
I would love to. Anybody from Netflix or Hulu or whatever wants to hit me up, I'm willing.
Dude.
But I will say this: there is something that is in the works, possibly more yes than no. That down the road, I'm hoping that I will,
Hurry up, man. Hurry up, please. Hurry up, because
we'll see.
I'm telling you now. I mean, Netflix and banter aside, how the hell do you process that? How the hell? I mean, for the first time as a kid, you're going home and going, please just ground me, right?
Yeah.
Just ground me.
Oh, I was scared of everything.
First of all, Dad, give me a cigarette and then we'll talk about it. All right. I mean, that would have been what how do you process this? And 2 points, and I'm sorry, Beverly, I'm going to come to you in a second. 2 points. You mentioned 2 times. There was 2 moments where there was almost like a human-like moment where there was this smile, where you said it could have been a snarl and there was a smile, and then there was the flinch.
Yeah, he was letting me know I gotcha. That's how I took it.
Was there? Do you remember any smell coming off?
No, you know what? A lot of people have asked me that. Yeah. No, and it's a very fair question. Obviously, with all the shows on TV and people talking about Bigfoot and all that having a scent, the only thing I can remember smell-wise was the fire. That's all I could smell. It was so heavy with just burning wood. That's all I can remember from that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because I often wonder if it's for example, if it's a demon, right? If it's not a werewolf, a man, full moon turns into a werewolf, would it stink? Because
I believe it was a demon. I believe it was more a hellhound, and they talk about those types of beings, having a sulfurish type of smell.
There's the sulfur side, but I don't necessarily mean that, because I mean, if I was a shape-shifting creature and I was sort of molding myself into what I wanted to be, I wouldn't be throwing on some stank, if that makes sense. Did you see
you'd want it hidden for sure.
Whereas if you're a man turning into a wolf, or you're a Bigfoot, you're not really going to have much say in it, if that makes sense.
No, I agree.
We know that demonic spirits do come with various smells, but it's not like, oh, there's a big wet dog here, or oh, there's a stinky animal or whatever. It's very sulfury and things like that. Now, Bev, I've been on a journey. I don't know if you've just been on a journey, but I wish. Matt, I'm telling you now, you just need to open Matt's Dogman fire story round the campfire weekend trips, right? Because this is. It was incredible. But Beverly,
it was absolutely brilliant, and of course on a full moon too. So that's absolutely perfect for us, isn't it? It's really great.
What's funny, Beverly? Can I cut you off for 1 second? You can look up on online in the past that there's been lunar, moon, full moon. We actually looked up a buddy of mine who's a documentary. It's coming out in the early summer this year that I'll be in. It's off of ETS called Exposing the Strange, and David Wolf is making and finishing this documentary, and again, I'll be in it. But we looked up, we were curious what the phase of the moon was, and that week it happened in between. I told him I thought it was somewhere in between Thursday and Saturday, and during that stretch of days it was a full moon, ironically.
Yeah, no, it's no surprise. It's definitely what they call high strangeness, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. And now I will clarify, it definitely wasn't the beastie from the Montauk Project, because the Montauk Project had a similar type of entity beast that was able to move interdimensionally, but that was unlocked and it was much larger and it was completely uncontrollable, so much so they had to destroy part of the base in order to contain the beastie. And that was around, between 12 and 16 feet tall. So it's bigger. And the way that you described your being is nowhere closer to the Montauk Project beast. So I know some people were wondering whether it could have been that. The other thing that is very keen here is that as far as the being goes, the fact that it doesn't have a smell, that tells me one specific aspect. I don't believe it's a hellhound, because a hellhound reeks. It smells real bad.
Okay.
It's a real puffy thing. And also it does have the dripping saliva, and it does have, people that I've met, particularly in Africa when I was working out there, that had seen these types of things. They said that the smell is so putrid that you can just almost just vomit straight away. That's how smelly they are.
Interesting.
So that's the first thing. The second thing was the aspect of the stripe down the back. Those beings that there's been a lot of people that have mentioned they've seen them, is it's not a stripe that's a flat stripe. It's a stripe that comes out in pieces along the back of over the hindquarter, up over the neck, and then kind of stops just before the cranium, just before the head. And it's about 1 hand wide. So it goes all the way down. That is what I've been told particularly. And it doesn't always go down the tail. It stops at the end of the hindquarter, which is, everybody seems to be consistent with what I've been told. It stops at the hindquarter, and then you have this black tail. So that's the other interesting fact. The reason why there's no smell from these types of beings is because they're mainly interdimensional. They have an ability to move in between the dimensions, and they also have an ability to read minds and to pick up minds. So when you very kindly said that you turned and you felt that the thing was smiling at you, it probably was, because it's able to perceive, not necessarily our language, because they don't speak English or any other language actually, but they do understand emotions, and they can read vibrations. So he would have been not only smelling the air, but he would have been smelling for your pheromones, and he would have been smelling for your energetic signature. Because no matter where you are in the world, you have an energetic signature, because that's what I read. So that's what he would have been doing. He would have been sniffing, not because the olfactory system, the nose opens and closes. If you look at a doggy's nose, the doggy's nose underneath, it opens and it closes. Right. So it's sniffing in and out at the same time. Whereas we breathe in, but generally when we breathe out, it's not always at the same time. They can breathe in on singular sides. And that is also part of this off-world being that's able to do that. Now, there's many, many sightings of this type all across the world, but then they don't always defend themselves to other animals. They choose to go incognito. They have a very developed sense where they can become totally invisible. And that's what you witnessed by the arm removing itself.
Yeah.
The other aspect was that you'd said that this being, the thing, was able to stand really close to the furnace. Now, the planet that they come from is extremely hot, and they have their own types of coolant system inside, and that they would be able to stand next to a furnace, you know, like it was nothing really, because their own home planet is extremely hot. It's like 15 to 100 degrees hotter than our planet. The eyes as well, they have special layers of eyelids and backlighting, whereby they can, it's almost not, it's not liquid mercury, but it's like a liquid that can be processed when they need to be able to see in different low level lights. You will get that light that shines behind their eyes that moves forward so that they can see where they're going.
That's incredible.
So there are many. There is a wolf. It's not a lichen, because a lichen is actually a different type of species. It's a werewolf. It's a human person that has had either been scratched or bitten. But this particular being that you saw, and that was a small one. Generally, they're 12 to 16 to 12. Some have even been 20 feet tall. So I think this was a juvenile, and the fact that it was marking its territory. Generally, they're sent here to look at their higher frequencies, but also planetary wise, they're sent here as a lone juvenile because they need to show their capabilities. It's like a rite of passage, if you like.
This is the freaking story of the Predator. Everything you're saying right now,
it does sound like
literally
I didn't see the Predator.
There's a movie called The Predator, and they are alpha hunting race on their planet, and it's very much like indigenous sort of rite of passage style vibes, where they're sent off world to go and hunt the elite species of every planet.
All right, I must
and
go
invisible. They go invisible.
That's common. I mean, and people can do the same. I mean, the one that appeared in my lounge, let's face it, he was also a juvenile, but he'd come and say goodbye, and he went invisible. But then, obviously, as you know, I followed him. But that's another story. Yeah, and then we've got those called Bigfoot, which they don't really like being called Bigfoot. So the Aloan do the same thing. They also have a very similar thing. So my comment about this movie that you're mentioning, it's possible then that at some point, whoever wrote the movie and whoever maybe directed it, I'll just go and have a look at it.
Predator.
I think that whoever was writing it possibly was channeling some of that information, or knew already from all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases around the world, might have collected all of that. And made something out of it.
Matt, I'll be honest with you. I think this could be a moment for you where Beverly, myself, our community, and to Beverly and her group of friends, your story is another day at the office. She knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
She knows exactly what your experiences are. And I think we should all gather here again this week at some point, because I think there's a bunch of people that would love to tell you more, Matt, and help you.
I would love to
understand some of the in-depths of other people's encounters with these creatures.
There's a lot of them.
An opportunistic encounter, say with one that's been sent here and one that's visiting here, an elder or a young one. There could be a lot more to this that could really help. For a start, for some reason, is it more comforting knowing that this was a chance encounter with an off-world being that was sent here to prove his worth compared to man who turns into terrifying dog in the woods that could still be walking around? It's all these levels to what can possibly give you more comfort or give you some more answers, because like I say, Beverly and her crew achieve unbelievable things. I mean, last year 1,000 people gathered in a field, Matt, and Danny Henderson and Alana. It's not Alana, is it? It's Elena. How do you pronounce that?
Elena Denon. Yes, she'd asked for the starships and the craft to appear at a certain date and a certain time.
And if it said a certain date, a certain time, and these craft
And they arrive.
It's all on YouTube. It's all documented. 1,000 witnesses, aircraft flying overhead, off world. I mean,
can't wait to see it.
Like I say, it's a lot to take in because it's like, hey, come on the podcast, and hey, meet Beverly the Jedi, and hey, listen, all this is real. It is. We are fully on board with your story, Matt. And
absolutely.
I'm going to tell you now.
I appreciate it.
My Discord is going to go nuts once we finish this interview, and they're going to be like, Matt needs to come back. Okay, we need to get Matt on with Beverly and all these other people, because I think that could be quite an interesting little story arc journey for you, Matt.
Okay, I'm down.
That'll be good. I've got a couple of other questions for you, Matt. There's one or two questions. One of them was a lot of the other witnesses that have had these encounters. They do say, and this is what made me think that this is possible for you, and unfortunately your lovely friends that are no longer with us, and my condolences on your loss. What we found is that over a period of time, these images and the communications in a parallel way actually start permeating dream state. But then in some of the dream states, they don't feel like a dream state. It actually feels like an out of body, or it feels like you're very much awake and you can see and perceive things. And that part of that either fear or the aspect of you reliving it. But what they keep saying is, although they felt that they were reliving it, they weren't reliving it. There was like another dimension, or there was another chapter to it, or there was a new message, or there was something else. So did you find anything like that?
It's absolutely incredible that you brought that up. I actually wasn't going to share this.
Yeah, no, I know you're not going to share it. Sorry.
No, I'd be happy to. I've had a number of other interviews that I've shared this. So in 2024, towards the beginning of the year, I had the only thing I've been able to call is a dreamscape dream. Wow. And what occurred was, normally any dream that you think you're at your home, it's never the same. It's never your house. Sure. But I was at my house that I live in now, and I had heard in this dreamscape situation I was in, I had heard noises outside. I went out and I went to we have woods behind my home, and I was looking out in the woods, and basically what occurred was I was attacked by the exact same thing that I saw when I was 14, and it had crawled up on my chest towards the end before I woke up, and it put its head only about that far from mine. I could smell a horse-like smell in a dream. It made no sense. It was dripping saliva on me and actually went into my mouth in the dream. And also it spoke to me, but it never moved its mouth. It sounded like a synthesized deep voice. And it said to me, "You speak of me too often. I will see you again." And then I woke up and I was sopping wet with sweat. My dog, who we have, was sitting at my feet with her paws on my knees crying.
No,
she knew something was up. So that's so crazy you bring that up, because that's what happened to me. And again, I've told that in a number of interviews in the last year.
And I think the saliva is a key aspect there. That's what we call a key differentiator between, just a general one-to-one type of incursion where the two meet, but then where it becomes part of an organic situation. So you had your organic body, the entity or the being coming, as well as the saliva. The saliva has the ability to bend light, and it causes these refractions. And because some of it entered your body, and also because it understands and smells and can retain any types of smell that it smelled of any numerous individuals across different dimensions. It's the same as myself. Once I've met someone and I've heard their story or read their energy, I personally can retain all of that information about the individuals I've seen for years. And I've been seeing people for 45 years now. That particular energy that you've got from the saliva if somebody knew how to activate that energy, you'd actually be able to remember a lot more, because you have got a direct link to the being now.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, this is the prepared to have your mind blown several times with Beverly.
I would love to speak in length with you, Beverly, sometime.
The other thing I wanted to ask you as well, do you find that you sometimes at night, if you feel that you want to shout at something because you feel a presence in your room, do you sometimes shout out in English, but the language that comes out of your mouth is not the same?
I don't know if that's exactly what I've done, but I've had my family in the house be woken up by me being loud at night and saying, "What are you doing?" And I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask my wife, but she said to me, "You were talking like strangely." That's all she said.
Probably
Where
good.
I feel something weird though regularly is whenever I'm coming into my home late at night. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like somebody's in the woods. It's really strange. And I always kind of hurry to go in the house. So that's a regular thing that I do.
So it's hypervigilance. So that's part of complex PTSD then. I had complex PTSD for a very long time after being in an incident on a 7-7 London situation where we had a number of trains and things that were destroyed, shall we say. So that I understand the complex PTSD and hypervigilance. So that could be part of it. But I think because you've had the saliva and you've had the organic exchange with the being, it is probable that you would be able to pick up a lot more than you realize. Also, the other thing you would find, and I find this with many individuals that have had contact, you can test it by throwing a small ball and to see whether you perceive where the ball is coming. So you might just turn and grab the ball in midair. And these are little tiny little tests that you can do to see, how far is it? Because their energy field is a lot bigger than ours. I mean, ours are maybe about 7-8 feet. Some are larger. But the moment you are within around about 2 to 3 meters of one of these energy beings, you will be able to perceive the energy, and you will be able to have an energy transference. Not so much theirs coming into you, but more yours going into theirs.
I've got a question for you, Bev. Are these fear feeders, or are these were these boys in danger? Would this being have harmed them, or was it more about terrifying them and running away?
No, they're not. They're a different type. They're not the fear feeders. Fear is not the food. Power is not.
Yeah, I got the impression we were.
They're carnivores. They will eat. They will. Yeah, they will.
Yeah, that's the impression I got, that he was ready to kill.
Yeah, they are carnivores.
Yeah. Damn. Sorry, I should again. I apologize, Matt. I start fanboying out over my own podcast when Bev's here because my mind just starts getting blown. Right, like it just starts getting blown. And from what Bev said to you, and I don't know if you've heard maybe the concept of this being explained to you as off-worlders or interdimensional or anything like that. Has anything that Bev sort of said, has any of that new information, or has anything sort of clicked in your mind with her overview of the situation?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, when she started talking about the dream scape type of event, that blew my mind. Like I said, I wasn't even going to share it. But again, some of the people that were here, like Tyler, and they've heard me speak about it. I've also come into, lately, I'm of the belief of what some of the new thoughts are with, aliens and things, that instead of them coming from deep space, that they're actually interdimensional. So I just believe the way that this thing had all of a sudden it was some physical form, and then all of a sudden it turns into a shadow and blinks out. That gave me the impression as well that it went somewhere else instead of Earth. So I'm a believer of interdimensional, and that makes sense to me that that's where it would be.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's only one. I think there's only one person that I know of that has actually got a hair from one of the beings that caused an issue with him, and I know that was sent off to be analyzed because he managed to keep it, because he had it on his person in a very odd place, shall we say, and it was written extremely well. And he had said that he didn't realize that he had this long black hair, until such time as he was getting ready to go and shower. And then he realized that when he saw the hair, which he then, presence of mind, awesome, went and put it into a vial and kept it, and then took it and sent it away for analysis to a couple of places. His book is called Hair of the Alien, in case anyone wants to look it up. It's a very exciting case, very little known case actually, but it could be quite interesting. The other thing I wanted to say as well with the urine stream of the being, it could have had a very strong acidic smell, but it also would have had a perfumed smell. So that for me is very common amongst everyone that has mentioned that. Not just for this particular set of beings, but also for the felines. So the feline beings are also very tall, but they look like lions. And they also mark their territory in the same way. And they also have a very scented, extremely scented, because even though we don't have the level of olfactory system that other creatures do have, it's so strong that even we as humans can smell it too. So you might have, I don't know whether you can recall that, but maybe you just recall it.
I'm sure if we would have went out afterwards and went to that area, maybe we would have smelled it.
Yeah. And it's a very funny smell. It's like, it's a little bit acidic, but also it's got a definite perfumed type of smell. It's very different.
It's mad to think that our planet's covered in interdimensional wee-wees. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it's a mad concept to think that that's a thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, they have to state where their territory is somehow.
Sure. I think this is the first real conclusive story that I believe that includes a cryptid / paranormal entity having a wee.
I've never heard another one.
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to make jokes out here. I'm just saying.
No, I agree.
It was a crucial part of the story. But this is fascinating, and I'm so glad that you were here, Bev, because you've added a whole new level.
Oh, yes. Well, it's lovely, Matt, and I would love to have a look at your channel. In fact, I might even go and have a look as well later, because I see you talk about UFOs as well. So I might just send you my book, because my book has got all the information.
I would be honored.
From age 3 onwards.
You've got some people you need to meet. We've got some people you need to see, some channels you need to see, some collabs you need to do, because I think what you're doing on your channel is exactly what a lot of Bev's friends and her colleagues and things.
Collaboration.
For sure.
Nice.
Everything happens for a reason, so I will be absolutely open to anyone for sure.
Well, let's jump in to some glorious viewer questions, right? Yes. Because long before you guys started talking about the possibility of hellhounds and all of this, there has been heated debate in the side chat. Okay, we've had, is it the Sphinx, an Egyptian Sphinx demon? We've had, is it a hellhound? Is it there's another word for shapeshifter. There's something, skinwalker. Is it a skinwalker? Yeah. We've had all kinds of stuff. I just want to first of all say, Ramirez here, if you're still watching, massive condolences to you. I know we'll be reaching out to you. You know, here at the Sean Atwood channel, we're always here to support you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Now, Bev, is a Dogman? No, listen, don't answer this. I don't know what the Montauk Project is, and I don't want to find out until Bev does a show with me explaining what it is. Okay,
on the Montauk,
if it's going to be another werewolfy Dogman story, it's
not a werewolfy Dogman.
Oh, what is it? What are we talking about?
the Montag, it's what I said. There was a unfortunately with the Black Mirrors, there was an incident where too many remote viewers caused a bit of an issue, and something moved from one of the dimensions into our reality and started basically, kicking up the dust and causing all sorts of havoc. And then the Army and Navy had to basically stop it.
I swear to God, Bev, I know you've got it's a dodgy internet connection, but I swear to God, you are shape-shifting on camera this evening.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to shape-shift, but yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. Just get it under control. Okay, we're live on the internet, Bev. Okay. If they all find out we're reptilians, this whole gig is over, Bev. Okay,
I'm not reptilian. I'm not reptilian. I'm something else, but I'm not reptilian.
Yeah, I know. I'm busting chops. It was a V. It was a V movie. It was a V series reference.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
yeah,
good.
mousy.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, our Bigfoot Sasquatch seen in the area. There has been witness accounts of Dogman hanging out with a group of Sasquatch.
Yeah, so being in Northeast Ohio, there's a lot of surrounding areas that there have been a number of Sasquatch, more than Dogman sightings. So yes, they have been called out, if you will, in the area that I live in, for sure.
So if we were to take Sasquatch, Bev, and we were to take Matt's dimensional and being encounter, right? Would Sasquatch and those beings kind of hang out together? Because I would imagine it's Sasquatch. In fact, you know what? Let's not get too much into Sasquatch. But would these beings sort of hang out together, or would that maybe have been a werewolf as opposed to an interdimensional being that would be seen with another cryptid? What would you think?
Alowans, which is the Bigfoot. Alowans are also interdimensional beings, but they are from a slightly different area. Similar type of planet, also very hot planet. They have the same level of smell and the ability. It's unlikely that they have too much of a smell within themselves because they're not an animal as such. It's a higher level being, interdimensional one. So I think that they would in all likelihood, because most of the planets live peacefully with each other, they would then be peaceful with each other if they were to come across each other.
See if Bigfoot decided to come here and just stay here, right? Would he not start gathering up the smell of living here, if that makes sense? Like, would he not take on, like, if he started rolling about and stuff, would he not take on some sort of smell if he was here for you? No, I'm just.
I think they would stink of us. Yeah, they would, because we do smell quite a lot. Yeah. Because we eat all sorts of funny things. Yeah, but generally, no, they wouldn't, because once you move back into your own time frame and your own dimension, you retain the smell of where you come from.
Sure. I'm with you. All right. Okay. Now this is one I need someone to level this one out for me, because what is the difference between a werewolf and a Dogman? Or are they the same thing? And it's just culture that gives the titles.
I believe they're completely different.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, Matt, you go first, and then Bev, because I'm fanboying out again. I've got my notepad out. I'm taking some notes here.
All the years that I've, and obviously I've been doing a lot of research for years because of what occurred. The Dogman are what they are 24/7, and a werewolf is like, you had mentioned before, and a man or a woman that's been scratched or injured by another one, and they take on that form whenever.
So one's an actual creature and one's a virus, effectively, or a viral.
That's a good way to say it, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think werewolf lichen is where the blood does change. Although I must admit, most individuals that I've spoken to in the last sort of 30 years, there hasn't really been a true lichen for a very, very long time. Not one that you could say absolutely that is 100% lichen, unlike vampires, but definitely hasn't been many lichens left.
Okay. See, this is another one, Felicia. This was a while. This was over an hour ago. This was sent in. Predator movie has a cloaking that happens similar cloaking happens when Bigfoot sighting.
I'm going to write that down. I'm writing down.
There's actually a video, not to cut you off. There's a video that someone got recently. It's online. They caught just for a split second. They're looking for Bigfoot, and there's like a predator kind of shimmer, and it runs through like branches, and you see the branches move and everything.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's
I know they can easily phase in and phase out it's easy. It's something that's quite easy to do.
So again, this will sound like a dumb statement, but again, so if you are doing paranormal investigations and you see what looks like what we describe as the cloaked predator, you now have a data point of interdimensional being. You don't have to go, oh, it's a ghost, or I've seen this. You have a positive reference that you're dealing with something. You know what you're dealing with, effectively. I wouldn't hang about, right? I've only heard one interdimensional story in my whole life that's came from Matt. Didn't turn out too well for Matt, so I would just leave if I was up to if it was up to me. But at least you have a data point in your head now, which is quite interesting.
I'll send you some pictures because it's the pictures that are all AI generated. Thank goodness for AI. Lots of downtime scribbling with the pencil. That's all gone. Thank goodness. I'll send you some of them that have been reported and seen over the last sort of 40 years, and that'll give you a good data reference point.
Yeah, I kind of want to see Matt coming back for like we'll compile maybe like 20 of the best videos online, and we'll come back and we'll watch them all as a community, because
I would love to.
Like I've always referred to this as the school of Beverly Roads. Every time we meet and do a podcast, it's such good fun.
I'm very interested in what else Matt has buried, because I think there's a lot of stuff buried there that I'm more interested, because there's a lot of very, very good sets of information and data points, and
there is more buried for sure.
Yeah, and just so you know, Beverly now knows them all. Okay, just so you know, and she keeps them all to herself. But if you ever want to talk, she's a good one to talk to. Now, Sue, we answered this one previously, but a great question. Okay, was it like a dire wolf? They are 7 to 8 foot long. Skinwalker Ranch believe they found evidence of them. Interesting. No, I mean this sounds way bigger. And again, when we think of a wolf, we think of a big dog, you know what I'm saying? Like we're talking, this was bipedal, and the raccoon hands. I mean,
but that is what they look like when you see them. That is what they look like. When I worked with the professor at Skinwalker Ranch, we were comparing notes about these beings, and I was also talking about one of the in the mesa, underneath the mesa, there's a craft under the mesa that they're trying to understand. And one or two of the beings I had said this is what I'd seen, and the professor had said that was very similar, because he was there at the time when the person fell ill, if you remember.
Yeah, I saw that on TV.
Yeah. So yeah, he's I'm hoping that at some point he'll come on the show and have a chat with us. He's really lovely.
I will answer this. I know what a dire wolf is, and the explanation from what occurred at Skinwalker Ranch from the person who had owned that place before they started doing research there. It dwarfs what they had described at that place. So
yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I agree with you.
Okay, here's another spicy one. So following on, is a Dogman a man-made creation or an interdimensional alien? So not a werewolf, not what Matt encountered, but a Dogman. What is this? A species that's always existed here but has died out? Was this a product of some wild night on some fungus for a lumberjack in the woods with a wolf and created some sort of horrific crossbreed? Where is the origins of the Dogman, Beverly? If you know, of course.
I'll let her answer it.
Yeah.
I think the Dogman is also partially. I don't believe for 1 minute that it's man-made because of the structure
I don't either.
of the Dogman. I'm sure you agree there, Matt. And think it is also an interdimensional type of being, but slightly different. And I do think that they more than likely inhabit similar planetary areas. So the area that the being that you saw, Matt, as well as the Dogman type, is more than likely from the same planetary area.
What about all the tales and legends we hear of witches and magic being used to curse people and turn them into horrific things like dogmen and all this kind of stuff. Is there possibility of remnants of ancient magic that could have, persisted throughout time, and maybe there's a family bloodline where however many babies are born, and really I'm just spitballing here with regards to the Dogman, because the Dogman has a very, very, very long lineage as well in many folklores from around the world. So
well, they would be, because they would have been coming here. I mean, the planet
traveling,
is billions
yeah,
and billions of years
yeah.
old.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, yeah, great answer. All right. Serbius guards hell, 3-headed dog. Yep. Beverly, what is Bigfoot up to? He just chilling on that interdimensional vibe, yo. He just chilling. He just doing his thing.
Well, at least if we could start calling it Aolan, which is what they call themselves. They don't call it.
Okay. So
it's Aolan. Aolan. Aolan.
That's
okay.
why Aolan. Nice.
Aolan, yeah. So refer to them and then call them by their name, and then because
I tell you what, you tell one of them. You tell one of them to come and visit me and tell them themselves, right? And then I'll do it. Okay. No. Right.
But we've got the American Indian shaman, a couple of the ladies that do talk to them. So and this is where a lot of the information has come from about.
So are they insulted by some of the names that people give them then?
Well, they're not overly fond of it, shall we say?
I'm sure.
That's why they've made it known what they are and what their species is called, the Aolan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd get on right with Bigfoots. I think I'd be all right with it. I think I of all the cryptids, I would hang out. I'd be like, all right, we're hanging out in the woods. Maybe we'll have some meat. Maybe we'll eat some berries. We'll go fishing. We can talk about hair products and make our hair look fabulous. You know what I'm saying? I think I could get on with a Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? I think I could. Were you able to take a look at Matilda O'Deal McElroy's notes she left behind? That sounds like something that would pop up in
another one. Yeah, just let me get that down. Matilda O'Donnell.
McElroy.
I've learned to keep my pen and pad because I know that our lovely viewers give me some really great targets to remote view every now and then.
I've got a pad now too because ADHD.
I have to.
Trying to keep track of things.
So thank you, Agent Orange. Agent Orange, I will go and have a look because that sounds like a really interesting one.
Agent Orange has had some pretty good takes throughout the series. I have to say, they are a very active side
and
chat.
Lady Warrior too. Warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. How weird is that? That is the next question.
Funny.
From Lady Warrior. That was weird. Matt, I work with exorcists. Do you remember the name of the one you work with? I'm going to ask my person about interdimensional beings, and yes, he believes in them.
I didn't work with an exorcist. I went to see the priest at my church, and he just mentioned exorcisms as in, the types of different things that are in our world. And he was bringing up demons and things like that. So I never worked with an actual exorcist unless Father Ashkar was doing it and I didn't know. So,
I think you'd know. I think you'd know. No.
I'm sorry if you misunderstood me.
That's right. I missed one of these as well before that one. Are these interdimensionals mostly negative vibrations?
No, not mostly. No, abundantly empowered. They're not mostly negative. Everybody has both light and dark with them, and negative and positive. It depends. It depends on why they're here, or whether they got stuck here, whether they're traveling for specific reasons. We're getting a lot of tourists at the moment that are coming to the planet because obviously we're moving into the abundance and we're awakening. And it's literally history in the making. So it's a lovely planet.
I hope I'm still here when that happens too.
Yeah, I love how you refer to interdimensional werewolves as tourists. Okay, just for a start, just throwing that out there, the most understated way of putting it. But yeah, sure. So here's another one here from Music Therapy. Do they come in peace, or what is their objective?
I think for the most part, they come in peace, Music Therapy, mostly. I think that generally, if this particular one obviously was attacked by a whole bunch of dogs or, a pack of dogs, he would have been juvenile. He would have had to have defended himself very definitely. But I think also that the fact that he had marked his territory and he was looking for yourself, Matt, and all of your lovely friends. I don't think necessarily that he would have decided to make the friends his latest lunch or his dinner. I think that he was, because he'd had a smirk, so to speak, and then turned and was getting ready to move away, and then the train came. I don't think he was intent on utilizing you and your friends as dinner. From what I understand from those that had these similar situations previously, if that thing had wanted to have lunch or dinner made out of yourself and your friends, that you would have been a long goner long before then.
Makes sense.
And I think he was listening. He probably was listening. As much as he was sniffing and smelling, I think he was trying to listen telepathically to what you were saying.
That's interesting.
Maybe he was a parent back on his world and he wanted to teach these kids a lesson about staying out too late and playing in places they shouldn't have been playing.
What are you like, Ron?
It's flabbergasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about interdimensional beings, truly, we do not know what that intent was. It may have been a responsible werewolf parent teaching humans a lesson. It may have been a snarling, blood-hungry creature that at the last moment was scared off. It may have been divine intervention. But the fact of the matter was, it happened.
Mm.
And regardless of the reason that it happened, the trauma, the living memory of that, the effect that it's had on your friends, their lives, their families, everyone, that is staring us all right in the face. And I just want to say thank you, Matt, for coming here, opening up and sharing this story, answering questions, going into detail about it, because I've never heard anything like this. And it's very different when 3 or 4 friends share an experience compared to one person. And you share something that few people will ever experience and have a connection with another human through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm so sorry that one day in the woods changed the path of your lives forever. And I'm really excited to talk to you again, Matt. And I'm so glad that you're
look forward to it.
Yeah,
and I will say this. Say this real quick. You know, I've been asked a bunch of times if you could change it, would you? I have. It's a double-edged sword for me. One part of it is my friends. If that meant my friends would still be alive, absolutely. But the other side of it is I can't control that my friends aren't here anymore. And I actually am glad that I know these things are out there and that I was opened up to this whole other dimension, so to speak, of anything is possible. So I don't know. I'm a big part of me, even though it freaks me out, even though, you know, when I think of what happened, it puts me in a negative place. I'm still glad that I learned that it's not just movie stuff out there. And, you know, you had mentioned witches and spells, and I do believe this as well. You know, myth, just like I found out, there's story part of it, but where did these stories come from? There's always truths to myths. So, yeah, man, I can't change what happened, so I'm glad I learned that these exist.
Yeah. And I think also it was unfortunate that your belated mum, God rest her soul, that she even though she found out later about everything, that she didn't actually believe any of it, but at least, because she's already safely in other dimensions on the other side, she certainly will be believing it now.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Last question. Favorite werewolf movie? Let's go.
Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers. Yeah, I'm the same all the way, right? If you've not seen Dog Soldiers, go and check it out. British made movie. Awesome.
Absolutely phenomenal.
And thank you again, Matt. Thank you, Side Chat. Thank you all for being awesome. Thank you to the mods. But Matt, we're going to chat. I've got you on WhatsApp. If you want me to connect you with Beverly, I can make a little group. You don't feel free.
Absolutely. I would love to.
That would be lovely. Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your story today. And thank you for being so open as well with things that I've sort of picked up and asked you about. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys.
And my beautiful fiance is going to go, how was the podcast? How was the guest? What was it about? And I'm going to be like, babe, you got to sit back and you got to listen to this. Because wow. And I tell you what, I think all of us will be terribly recounting your story around a campfire at some point. I'll tell you that right now. And just amazing, Matt. And thank you so much again. And make sure you subscribe to Matt.
I'm going to go and subscribe to Matt right now, Matt. So I will do a wave and say hello.
Thank you. It's a little over a year old, but it's going pretty good. So yeah, I would love to always open up more to the population of Planet 412. So come on over.
100%.
I'm definitely going to come and say hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That blew my mind. I was like, that was like being at the movies for me, right? I'm not going to lie. I'm not being funny. I was so drawn into that, man. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you, Side Chat. Thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow.